Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is mucking fun day. I hope you had a good weekend because everything sucks today. Or does it? I have a lot of news coming from today.
Majority.
Yeah, the majority of people today sucks. I have a lot of news. We have a lot of news coming from the weekend, like Orthodox Easter, China, and some flooding in Texas. Let's go ahead and cover our headlines. Today on Before Coffee, John Sweeney named new leader of the SNP.
And we talk about the weekend flooding in Houstan, Texas.
The president of China visits France.
And Arkansas will honor civil rights leader and Johnny Cash.
In our culture news, Orthodox Christians mark Easter across Europe with eggs and fireworks.
Those stories and more, which is Melanoma Monday, May 6th, Mucking Fun Day on Before Coffee.
I love that new intro. It's so quick and it's not as loud. Just like our show. Well, yeah. Actually, our show's not very quick. I think it's probably quick than an actual news show. But I think there's probably shorter blurbs, I guess. Okay, there's definitely something weird.
Well, there's news shows where people just talk endlessly and just going on. And people subscribe to it. And I'm like, you can listen to this for an hour?
Yeah. That's crazy, yeah.
No, I mean ours is. I mean, compared to our show, which is not. I'm not bragging on it or anything, but it's, how can you listen to somebody just talk monotone for an hour?
The same guy. At least there's two of us here, and then we argue about our own difference in opinions. Some people love listening.
And
to
usually
that.
It's the same crap every day. It's usually the same point of view every day and the same story, and it's like,
the frog's gay.
Change. Have some variety to your personality. I just don't. I can't listen to the same news story every day. That's why we don't cover. Oh, let's cover Palestine wall to wall. Everybody's doing that. Hey, let's overcover the Trump trial. Everybody's doing that.
Russia,
you can watch
Ukraine,
us, and we are not. We're talking about the world outside of the debauchery that they think you want to see.
Yeah, you think anyone's talking about SNP leadership changing? The answer is no, except for people in Scotland, which is what we're covering in this first news story here on the Herald Scotland by Andrew Leamonth. John Sweeney. I keep on saying Sweeney because I'm thinking of the musical. John Sweeney is the new leader of the SNP after...
Was he a barber?
Yeah, anyway. No, I don't think so. That's why.
Okay.
John Sweeney is the new leader of the SNP after no other candidate emerged in the contest to replace Humza Yousaf. The veteran MSP is now on course to become Scotland's 7th First Minister and the 3rd in just 13 months. Corruption is corrupting, I guess. It is the second time he has held the post, last leading the party 2 decades ago. You know it's bad when you're going back to a 2-decade-old MP. Talking on Twitter, Mr. Sweeney said he was deeply honored to have been elected as leader of the NSP and would give all that I have to serve my party and my country. He is due to be given an acceptance speech in Glasgow later this afternoon, which I think this is, today, so May 6th. The leadership contest was triggered after Mr. Yousaf confirmed his intention to resign last Monday. So it has been a week since we covered that story on April 29th. His position became untenable after a shock decision to end the SNP's power-sharing agreement with the Scottish Greens. He was facing 2 confidence votes and was at risk of losing both. It is thought the process to formally replace him as First Minister could happen quite quickly, with Mr. Yousaf expected to tender his resignation to the King tomorrow on May 7th. A Holy Road vote to formally appoint Mr. Sweeney could happen soon after. Although the SNP does not have a majority in the Parliament, it is unlikely that he will face any real difficulty. The Scottish Greens have said their MSPs will meet to discuss their approach to votes taking place this week. Patrick Harvey, the party's co-governor, said, "We are committed to delivering on our vision of a fairer, greener, and more equal Scotland, and we are open to talks with John Swinney and his team about how we can work together to make that happen." He said they will be back to form. He said they will back the former Deputy First Minister, but only if he pursues progressive policies. Scotland needs a period of stable government. Mr. Swinney knows that he is to have our support, that he must be on the basis of progressive policies that help us to tackle the climate crisis and build a fairer and more equal future. He added there will be a lot of important policies already on the way to deliver as a result of the Boot House Agreement. I just realized we have no background music, and I was like, and I only noticed because I hate when it's really quiet, and it freaks me out when it's quiet. And there will be a lot of important policies already on the way to deliver as a result of the Boot House Agreement, including better rights of tenants and rent controls, transforming the way we heat our homes, and watertight ban on conversion therapy. I agree. That sounds like a great idea. All of those things. We remain utterly committed to these policies and will oppose any move away from them or step to dilute them. It's also clear that the new climate bill must be used to bring about the pace of change that has been lacking since the NSP first started missing climate targets. Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross said, "I congratulate John Swinney on becoming SNP leader for a second time. We urge him to govern for all of Scotland by abandoning his relentless push for independence." Well, you can't tell the party that literally is called the Party for Independence to not push for independence. That's their whole party thing. Like, hello? Why is the Green Party caring about the climate? I don't know. Probably because they're the Green Party. By judging his leadership's launch slogan, that looks like a forlorn hope. Mr. Ross said there had been a stitch-up to ensure John Swinney's coronation. Nomination in the SNP leadership contest closed at noon. Over the weekend, there was a speculation that activist Graham McCormick could mount a bid after her secured the necessary number of signatures from its members. But late on Sunday, he said he would back out of the contest after a lengthy and fruitful conversation with Mr. Swinney. Meanwhile, the SNP's deputy leader, Keith Brown, said the party had received an immediate lift on the doorstep after Mr. Swinney put his name forward to replace Mr. Joseph. He also said the opposition had made a tactical mistake by allowing the SNP's biggest hitter to take charge. Speaking to the BBC's Good Morning Scotland radio program, Mr. Brown said it is important to respect the SNP's democratic processes. He said it seems to be that the field is cleaning somewhat and looks like John Swinney might be the sole nominee. Mr. Brown described Mr. Swinney as the biggest hitter in the SNP, which scare unionist parties to a great extent, which is why I think Mr. Ross was pleased begging him to not be in the SNP. Oh God, please, you'll actually try to get independence. When was he last in? 14 years ago? So what, 2004? Yeah, that was... I'm sure there was independence referendums back then.
That was 20 years ago.
Huh? Oh, you're right.
2004 is 20 years ago.
2014. What was happening in 2014? I guess that was the original independence referendum.
10 years ago.
Or was that Brexit? One of those were happening. I did a friggin'...
Brexit was probably 14. I think Brexit was 2014.
I think 2016.
Because that was right before that's right before the United States decided that being stupid was the way to go, and like the Trump. Hey, look, England's stupid. We can be stupid too.
Well, I think also there was a previous Scottish referendum for independence. I want to say back in 2012 or something like that, but I'm terrible at dates. I know I wrote my bachelor's thesis on this, but I forgot the date.
I want to say I think it was 2012 or so. Might have been.
Scottish referendums for independence. Because I think the thing was, if Scotland wanted to leave the UK, it was actually 2014. So the last time Swinney was in charge was when they had their last independence referendum. And the only reason they didn't leave, because they almost did leave, but the UK promised, hey, if you guys leave, you won't be part of the EU. And then the next year or so, anyways, we're leaving the EU.
They dropped out of the EU.
That's why Scotland was so pissed at Brexit, because that was the whole reason they didn't leave the UK. Was because you'll lose the EU, and they'll lose the EU anyway. So it was like a lose-lose for them.
The politicians that are completely wrong in this are the politicians that both wanted to keep Scotland and leave the EU. I mean, you had that position. I can't even understand how you live with yourself. Those are contradictory positions, right?
Yeah.
You want Scotland to be under your thumb, but you don't want the EU interfering with your stuff. Okay. Whatever. You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
England lost its mind 10 years ago, is what you're saying. All right, sorry.
But where were we? So 2014, he's a big hitter. That's what we were talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Where were we? Yeah, they won't face any big things. He has progressive policies. Scotland needs a period of stable government. Mr. Swiney knows that he is to have our support, and it must be on the basis of progressive policies that help us tackle the climate crisis. Yes, we talked about that.
What?
Mr. Ross is begging him, please don't try to leave the United Kingdom, but that's exactly it. He's the biggest hitter in S&P who would scare unionist parties to a great extent. He continued, this is Mr. Brown, I also understand over the course of the weekend, of course, we've people out canvassing. They've reported already an increase in positive turnout coming back from those canvassing sessions. There's been an immediate lift from the discussions which John Swiney has had first of all with Kate Forbes and is now appears Graham McCormick. Mr. Swiney's move into the Butte House comes as polling predicts a torrid time for the S&P. Survey from Norstat, formerly known as Panel Base, found that while support for the independents remains largely unchanged, Labour is set to overtake the SNP at both Westminster and Holyrood. According to the Sunday Times poll, the SNP would win 29% of the vote, while Labour would take 34%. Professor Sir John Crutis told the paper that meant that Mr. Swiney's part would hold just 15 of its 43 seats, with Scottish Labour winning 28. Of course, these are just polls, right? This does not determine actual results. So if you still, I understand SNP has been in power for a very long time, and they still haven't left the United Kingdom, so a lot of people are being very disenfranchised with, why do we vote for these guys if we still haven't left the United Kingdom? That's the whole point of the party. So I understand why Labour, who's always had a strong position in Scottish politics, is going to probably pull out more votes than they would before because of that kind of inaction by the SNP. But maybe now with Swiney in charge, they might actually push towards another referendum, which they only lost last time because, as we said, you'll lose the EU if you leave us.
Chicanery.
So that's my article. Or I guess that's the article I covered by Andrew Lemuth.
That's okay. From people that are denying, some people at least denying that climate change is actually happening. It's just funny in the United States anyway. You got an entire party that their position appears to be fluctuating on their audience. You got guys out there saying, well, climate change is really happening to one audience, and then they say to another audience, climate change is really happening, but we can't blame big oil for it. Those are their two positions. I'm like, neither one of those is even close to real. I mean, how can you say it's real and then say we're not going to do anything about it? We'll just accept it. Okay, anyway. And one of those states that just accepts that their fate is tied to the weather being really, really, really crazy is Texas. And they aren't doing nothing because they have this right-wing government that thinks that, big oil is going to take care of us. They're so great. Yeah. Heavy rains is from AP News. Right. We're being sarcastic. Heavy rains. This is from AP News. Jamie Stengel and Leakin Oyakanmi. Floodwaters closed some Texas schools on Monday after days of heavy rains pummeled the Houstan area and led to hundreds of rescues, including people who were stranded on rooftops. A 5-year-old boy died after riding in a car that was swept away in fast waters, authorities said. Yeah, man, don't try to drive in a flood, I swear. Although forecasters expected storms to begin tapering off in southeastern Texas, high waters continued to close some roads and left residents facing lengthy cleanups in neighborhoods where rising river levels led to weekend evacuation orders. And there's a lot of pictures. Houstan is one of the most flood-prone metro areas in the country. Hurricane Harvey in 2017 dumped historic rainfall that flooded thousands of homes and resulted in more than 60,000 rescues. In one sug area of Houston, school officials in Channelview canceled classes and said the survey of their employees found many of them had experienced circumstances that would prevent them from coming to work. Those folks have suffered much, people. Those folks have suffered much, people. Trinity County Sheriff Woody Wallace said Sunday during a Facebook live stream as he rowed a boat through a rural flooded neighborhood. Partially submerged cars and street signs peaked above the water around him. Areas near Lake Livingston, located near northeast of Houston, received upwards of 23 inches of rain over the past week. National Weather Service meteorologist Jimmy Fowler said. In Johnson County, south of Fort Worth, a 5-year-old boy died when he was swept away after the vehicle he was riding in became stuck in a swift-moving water near the community of Lillian just before 2 a.m. Sunday, an official said. A 5-year-old boy is in a car at 2 a.m. for what reason? Or do you live in the car?
Oh, maybe, yeah, and for the Europeans out there, that's 58 centimeters of rain. So, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of rain in a week. Well, it says over the past week. So, it's average per day of, 4 inches a day, roughly, right? Or something like that.
Crazy, yeah.
I can't do math. All right. Anyway. It's 3 inches a day. Sorry. It's still 3 inches a day. That seems like Maryland weather. The child and 2 adults were trying to reach dry ground when they were swept away. Okay, they were just leaving their house. Okay. The adults were rescued from 5 a.m. and taken to the hospital. The child was found dead around 7 a.m. in the water. Johnson County Emergency Management, Jamie Moore, wrote in a social media post. Storms brought 9 inches of rain in a span of 6 to 8 hours in some areas of central Texas, which is 23 centimeters. Central Texas to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, National Weather Service meteorologist Matt Staley said. And there's a picture of a mailbox submerged. There's a picture of a big flooded field.
I saw a video of a semi getting swept away.
Well, since last week, storms have forced numerous high water rescues in Houston area, including some from the rooftops of flooded homes. Greg Moss, 68, stayed put in his recreational vehicle on Sunday after leaving his home in the community of Channelview in eastern Harris County near the San Jacinto River. A day earlier, he had packed up many of his belongings and left before the road to his home flooded. I would be stuck for days, Moss said. Now at least I can get something to eat. Moss moved his belongings and vehicles to the neighbors' homes, where he planned to stay until the waters receded. The floodwaters had already gone down by a couple of feet, and he wasn't worried his home would flood because it's located on higher ground, Moss said. There's your story on the Houston flooding. As, more news from our hot planet. Wild weather, where systems just park in one area and dump rain and more rain and more rain.
I mean, if you want to talk about people who can't deal with crazy weather on the roads, it's people in Texas. I'm allowed to say that because I grew up there. Oh, I didn't grow up in Texas, but I grew up near Texas. And also,
You're born in Texas.
I have a friend who's from Michigan. Okay, so I have a friend who's from Michigan, now lives in Austin, and he had friends. Yeah. This is like way before this flooding. This was like 3 weeks ago. He had friends who canceled going out to play board games inside a building because it was going to rain. They didn't want to drive on the road to go to a place to sit inside while it was raining because it's dangerous to drive on rainy roads in Texas. Yeah.
Well, that's Austin. It rains all the time in Austin. Yeah, like El Paso. Yeah.
But Oh, my friend was just like, Texas drivers. I don't know. I don't understand it.
Oh,
Like, it's gonna rain. I can't leave the house now. It's gonna rain. But in this
that's the
case, it was
green part
probably
of
good
Texas.
you didn't leave the house because it was a lot of rain. Okay. So, anyways, weather news. Let's talk about China and France news. This is coming from Le Monde, which I believe is the word the mouth in French. From, I guess that's who's reporting it. It's just Le Monde. Le Monde. And they are reporting on the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, visiting France on an official visit. There's 60 years of Franco-Chinese diplomatic relations, which continues today on May 6th with Emmanuel Macron and Ursula von der Leyen, who is I think the current EU president or the commissioner. I can't remember what she is, but she's also a leader of in the EU. Xi Jinping arrived on Sunday, May 5th, in Paris, where Emmanuel Macron intends to advocate commercial reciprocity. Oh, I can't say it. I can't say this word. Reciprocity. Reciprocating. You can see the word reciprocate, but he can't say it either. And also, you're muted, so I can't hear you, but I can see you struggle to say the word. It's Monday, and we can't say reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
Yeah, and the search for a resolution to the
Was that
war in
close?
Ukraine in the face of Chinese president who continues to show his support for Russia. Because, let's be honest, if we're going to choose global sides, Russia and China are definitely on the same side against everyone else. Returning to Europe for the first time since 2019, the Chinese president organized his tour under the seal of diplomatic balance after the state visit to France, which has been asking him for a year to use his influence to bring Russia to its senses. He will visit Serbia and Hungary, two countries that have remained close to Moscow. On the afternoon of May 5th, local time, President of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, arrived by plane in Paris to begin a state visit to France, announced the official Chinese television, CCTV. He was welcomed around 4 p.m. by the French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal at Orly Airport. On Monday, Xi Jinping, who is coming to celebrate 60 years of Franco-Chinese diplomatic relations, will continue meetings with Emmanuel Macron, who consulted in advance with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. In the morning, the President of the European Commission, see, I was right, it was the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, will join the Franco-Chinese duo at Elysee for a session which should raise the issue of trade disputes. Threatened with being caught between the American and the Chinese economies, massively aided by public authorities, the European Union has in recent months increased investigations into Chinese state subsidies to several industrial sectors, in particular to electric vehicles, accused of distorting competition. I think we even talked about that back when they started the investigations, because China was basically making themselves have a bigger chance to survive in the market compared to anybody else. We must act to ensure the competition is fair and not distorted, Ursula von der Leyen said in a statement published overnight from Sunday to Monday. China currently manufactures with massive subsidies, more than it sells due to its weak domestic demand. This leads to an oversupply of subsidized Chinese products such as electric vehicles and steel, which leads to unfair trade, she accuses. Europe cannot accept such practices which distort the market and which could lead to deindustrialization in Europe. That's the last thing we need. That was the whole problem with the World War II. In previous discussions with Chinese presidents, I have made it clear that the current imbalance in market access are not sustainable and must be corrected, she adds. In the afternoon, after a formal welcoming ceremony with the great pomp of the Invalides and before a banquet at Elysee, Emmanuel Macron... Oh, my article went to English for a second there. It's like I can't read French. Emmanuel Macron and Xi Jinping will meet face-to-face for the most political sequence, then will speak in front of the press. The French president intends to ask his Chinese counterpart to support the Olympic truce for all conflicts during the Paris Games this summer. Paris wants to at least ensure that China, the main ally of Russia's President Vladimir Putin, does not fall in clear support for his war effort against Kyiv, or even encourage it to use levers it has over Moscow to contribute to resolution of this conflict, according to LC. Emmanuel Macron carried this same message a year ago during his state visit in China, with modest results. On Tuesday, which is going to be May 7th, the French president will nevertheless try to drive the point home in the Pyrenees during a more personal getaway between the two men, accompanied by their wives. The objective of this lunch on the Col du Tourmalet, where, as a child, he spent his holidays with his grandmother, is eminently diplomatic, to break the imposing protocol to establish a more direct dialogue, particularly on Ukraine. We understand the upheaval that the Ukrainian crisis is causing for Europeans. China is not at the origin of this crisis, nor is it a party or participant to it, declared Xi Jinping in an article published in the columns of Le Figaro. We hope the peace and stability will return quickly to Europe and intend to work with France and the entire international community to find a good avenues to resolve the crisis, he added. On the sensitive issue of human rights, Emmanuel Macron says he prefers to discuss disagreements rather than behind closed doors. Paris also did not want to prioritize the issue of Taiwan, even though it is at the heart of the strong tensions between the United States and China. Several hundred Tibetan activists gathered on Sunday at Place de la République in Paris to denounce China as a predator and a colonial regime. No to Chinese totalitarianism was read on a banner. In more related news, this is just a short little addition to this coming from also yesterday. Valerie Hayer, MEP and candidate for European elections, considers a genocide against the Uyghurs in China possible. It's pronounced Uyghurs. I just discovered. I've been saying, like Uyghurs because it's with a U, but it's actually Uyghurs. Mm-hmm. 5 weeks before the European elections, and while the Chinese president is received in France by Macron, the head of the list of president majority in the European elections, Valerie Hayer, estimated on May 6th on Sud Radio that China was possibly committing a genocide against Muslim minority, the Uyghurs, and called for a dialogue of truth with Xi Jinping. After hesitation invoking international justice, the MEP affirmed, when we talk about internment, when we talk about forced sterilizations, erasure of language, culture, yes, we can think that is a genocide, even if it's up to international justice to decide. According to her, the situation of the Uyghurs is unbearable, and this is why we must have a dialogue of truth with the Chinese president. She added, we have the opportunity in the European Parliament on several occasions to adopt resolutions condemning the situation of the Uyghurs, and we have mobilized in particular a prohibit forced labor, she recalled. On another subject of trade, Ms. Hayer recognizes that we have been too naive with China for too long, but assured that the European Union was in the process of changing gear. We consider that international trade would guarantee peace in the world. We see that this is not the case. We need to put in place a European trade shield, that is to say, which is the word I can't say, reciprocity, European preference. In the event of commercial aggression on the part of partners, we must have custom tariffs which make it possible to counter these aggressions, she judged. So she's planning on running on the idea of making a trade shield of the European Union so that we no longer, while we can advise that there is a global market that we all rely on, let's not rely too heavily on that global market or we might have another energy crisis like with Russia. And it's true, especially during the early 2000s, that increase of trade with China increased so rapidly that a lot of things people make not only are from China, but require parts from China. So you can't even make a certain thing without China's trade agreements. So a lot of people are pushing for a more internalized processing of goods instead of requiring different parts from all different places in order to create things. Before her, the one who is in the European race in third position behind the National Rally and Renaissance list, Raphael Glucksmann, called in the columns of Le Monde and on France Inter to not behave like a friend of Xi Jinping. We can discuss with everyone, but not in this way, he said in particular, believing that China, like Russia, are driven in their relations with France and Europe by an extremely deep ideological hostility. So there's your news on China, the European Union, and France. Hopefully, we can see some changes in what's going to happen with Russia and China, especially during the Olympic season, which is going to be starting soon, as the Olympic torch is already headed over to Paris very soon.
Any minute now.
Yeah, any minute now. It's going to be running across into Paris.
They're going to be run through the Arc de Triomphe any minute now, right? That's going to be the final place, right? Arc de Triomphe is going to be, and then they're going to
run it to
the Olympic Stadium.
It sounds like a great place to end it, yeah.
Well, it lands at the Olympic Stadium. That's where you have a ceremony.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so here we go with civil rights news. This is from Arkansas. And AP News, Andrew DeMillo, civil rights leader Daisy Bates, and singer Johnny Cash to replace Arkansas statues at the U.S. Capitol. Little Rock, Arkansas. Excuse me. When Arkansas lawmakers decided 5 years ago to replace the statues representing the state at the U.S. Capitol, there was little objection to getting rid of the existing sculptures. The statues that had stood there for more than 100 years were obscure figures in the state's history. I remember giving tours to constituents from Arkansas to young people, and I would point out the two representatives in Statuary Hall in our United States Capitol from Arkansas, said former Governor Asa Hutchinson, who also served in Congress. And he would say, we never heard of them. Or they would say, we never heard of them. Instead of two little-known figures from the 18th and 19th century, the state will soon be represented by the man in black and a woman who was instrumental in the fight over school desegregation. Officials plan to install statues of civil rights leader Daisy Bates this week and musician Johnny Cash later this year. Bates, who headed the state NAACP, mentored the black students known as the Little Rock Nine, who integrated Central High School in 1957. Famously, Eisenhower had to call out the 101st Airborne, so these kids could go to school, so 9 kids could go to school. Yeah, he called out the Army to get them to go to school. Not the National Guard, the actual Army, that's what I'm saying. He called out the Airborne. Look it up, man. Where other people called the National Guard, Eisenhower said, fuck it, I'm going out Airborne. Airborne's going into Arkansas. All right. Anyway. She is a well-known civil rights figure in Arkansas, where a downtown street in the capital, Little Rock, is named in her honor. The state also marks Daisy Bates Day on President's Day. Benjamin Victor, the Idaho sculptor who was chosen to create the statue of Bates, said he began his work by extensively studying her, including reading her 1962 autobiography and visiting her Little Rock home in Central High. He said he hopes the statue will help U.S. Capitol visitors learn more about her as well. I hope it really, first and foremost, inspires them to study Daisy Bates' life and legacy, Victor said. A big part of it is to capture the spirit of hers and inspire others to do the same and stand up for what's right. The 8-foot-tall bronze statue depicts Bates, who in real life was not 8 feet tall, who with her husband published the Arkansas State Press newspaper, walking with a newspaper in her arm. She holds a notebook and pen in one hand and wears an NAACP pin and rose on her lapel. Cash was born in Kingsland, a tiny town about 60 miles. We're talking about Johnny Cash now, south of Little Rock. He died in 2003 at the age of 71. His achievements include 90 million records sold worldwide, spanning country, rock, blues, folk, and gospel. He was among the few artists inducted in both the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The 8-foot-tall statue of Cash, he also was not 8 feet tall. If he was, he would be a lot more popular. He might have been a basketball player instead, right? Anyway, depicts a singer with a guitar slung across his back and a Bible in his hand. Little Rock sculptor Kevin Cressy, who was selected to create the statue, has sculpted other musical figures from Arkansas, such as Al Green, Glenn Campbell, and Livon Helm. Where's the Livon Helm statue? Cressy views Cash as a much-needed addition to the Capitol as a counterbalance to the conflict in Congress, he said. He walked the walk and he lived what he believed, and that was just a quality that really appealed to me, Cressy said. And that interior thoughtfulness was something that I really wanted to try to bring out in this sculpture. The Bates and Cash statues were replaced, ones depicting James P. Clark, a former governor and U.S. senator in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and Uriah Rose, a 19th century attorney. The statues had come under scrutiny, especially over racist comments Clark made calling the Democratic Party to preserve white standards. White standards. Ooh, how's them white standards working in Arkansas, huh? Get my lowest education graduation rates and economic depression.
Yeah.
But white standards, whatever. Republican Ben Hester, a Republican who is now the Senate President pro tem, began calling for the statues to be replaced in 2018. Clark Tucker, Clark's great-great-grandson and a Democratic state senator, also called for his ancestor's statue to come down. There was recognition broadly that it was time for a change, said Hutchinson, and signed the 2019 law requiring Bates and Cash statues to go up. Choosing their replacements was the hard part, with lawmakers offering competing ideas ranging from Walmart founder Sam Walton to a Navy SEAL from the state who was killed in Afghanistan. After some wrangling, lawmakers eventually approved Bates and Cash. Senator David Wallace, who sponsored the legislation to replace the previous sculpture, said he would hope the new statues would tell people more about the types of figures Arkansas has produced over the years. We wanted to do the common person that represented Arkansas, Wallace said, and I think that with Daisy Bates and Johnny Cash, we covered the spectrum in Arkansas just as they represent the common folks of Arkansas. And again, Johnny Cash, one of those guys that just did not care about politics. He just did his thing, right? He put people on TV that were not on TV for years and years and years. He put Pete Seeger on TV, right?
Yeah.
Which was very controversial, right? He put folk artists on TV. Let's put it that way. The Johnny Cash show. If there was a Johnny Cash show, it wasn't like any other show. You're expecting country music, and you got Bob Dylan, and you got Pete Seeger. So there's your good news from Arkansas, and it's not even good news. Good news Tuesday. Actually, I can't speak. I'm gonna have my lips replaced later today. And on to you. On to your story.
I can never speak, but it's always good to hear some monument replacement statue, new statues going up for people who actually deserve them, and not some losers, you know. Why?
Yeah, it was only like 2 statues.
Yeah, it's still better than 0.
2 statues, just some people you never heard of, and it's like, they probably thought they're going to be famous forever and ever. Nobody will ever take our statues down. We're so great.
I mean, it's really funny that people who get angry at certain statues getting taken down, right, are probably the same people who get angry at the millennials who got their gold stickers and their participation trophies. It's like, well, this guy had a statue and he wasn't even important. So, I mean, who's giving out participation trophies now?
My favorite one is it's the Republicans who are in favor of keeping these old Confederate statues up. You never hear a Democrat say that. But the Republicans say, well, the Democrats are the ones that were in favor of slavery. And I'm like, so why do you want to save their statues? Does that make any sense at all?
You should hate them more.
Morons.
Yeah.
So you're in favor of slavery is what you're saying. Oh, no, I'm not in favor of slavery, but those guys in the statues were. So let's get rid of their statues. What's the big problem here? Who cares what party they were in? Nobody cares what party somebody was in 1860, by the way.
Totally
we care what party you're in now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since they flipped around 1964, they flipped. They really flipped in presidential elections. They started the flip. It really flipped in 68.
Yeah.
But the liberals became the Democrats in the 30s. That happened a long time ago. Anyway.
No one ever talks about the Whig Party. What about the Whigs? They were the worst. They deserved to not.
The Whigs were the former, yeah. They're what the Republicans became as far as business. But the Whigs didn't necessarily care about slavery. The Republicans were anti-slavery. That's the difference.
Okay. Well,
the Whigs were somewhat anti-slavery, but they weren't ready to go to war over it. There you go. Sorry.
Let's talk about our culture segment here, which is about Christianity, but Orthodox Christianity, which is the more Eastern version of Christianity that no one ever talks about, but they have really beautiful churches. And they celebrated their Easter across Europe this weekend. This is coming from Your Nose Culture by, I don't know who it's by, but it's in Russian. Elise Morton. Orthodox Christians around the world marked Easter this Sunday, May 5th. The religious holiday celebrating Jesus Christ's resurrection was marked by vibrant festivities in Europe in countries with significant Orthodox Christian populations, including Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, and Ukraine. Eastern Orthodox Christians usually celebrate Easter later than the Catholic and Protestant churches, who celebrate on the 31st of March, because they follow the ancient Julian calendar, a different method of calculating the date for the holy day that marks Christ's resurrection. On one of the most striking features of Orthodox Easter is the midnight mass that ushers in Easter Sunday. Congregations gather in churches, holding candles while symbolically bringing the light of Christ's resurrection into the darkness. These light-filled services followed the more solemn observance of Good Friday, the day of Christ's crucifixion. In Greece, for example, Christians take part in the somber procession of Epitaphios, a recreation of the tomb of Christ, often decorated with flowers. For many Orthodox Christians, including in Serbia, where the day is called Veliki Petak, Good Friday is marked by dyeing or painting eggs, traditionally dyed red, using onion skins, beetroot, or berries to represent the blood of Christ. At the stroke of midnight on Easter Sunday, though, the period of mourning and fasting is over, and celebrations can begin. The priest announces that Christ is risen, Christos Ananesti in Greece, or Christos Voskres in Ukrainian, for example, to which the response is, truly, he has risen, Alithos Anesti, or Voistinu Voskres. This moment is marked by the ringing church bells, often followed by fireworks. Two churches on the Greek island of Chios, however, have long taken fireworks to a new level, and this year was no exception. These churches in town of Vrontados fired streams of fireworks at each other as part of the annual rocket war, with the Easter Mass continuing inside of the churches all the while. The tradition dates back to the 1800s, when Greece was part of the Ottoman Empire, when cannons were used instead of fireworks, and they just shoot over the whole town. Just imagine a bunch of streams just shooting over the whole town. That's what the video shows. The Cypriot Easter tradition of Lamprosia, which sees an effigy of Judas burned as a bonfire, went awry this year, with strong winds across the island leading to firefighters to tackle over 120 blazes. Yes, don't set fires on heavy winds. Following the service, the focus shifts to feasting, a welcome contrast to the strict fasting observed during the preceding Lent period. Roast lamb takes center stage in many communities, with other Eastern specialties including the sweet Bulgarian braided bread, kozunak, often baked with colored egg on top, the sometimes icing-topped Ukrainian bread paska, and the Greek magrista, a soup made from lamb offal. Fear not, it's not just offal. Greece has its own version of sweet Easter bread called sureki. Many churchgoers, including this year in Lithuania, took their Easter treats to be blessed by priests. A lot of pictures. Ukraine marked its third Easter under the shadow of war, with many faithful still attending church in despite of security concerns. So you can't stop people from celebrating their religious rituals, even if they're in a bunker in a subway somewhere during a war period. There's some really beautiful pictures, so I definitely advise to check out this article of just the food, the red eggs, the candles, and the really cool firework display video. The Rocket War 2024 chaos at Chios. And there's your very short and quick culture news on the other Easter no one talks about. Because some people actually don't even celebrate Easter at all. And it's so crazy how Christian-centric some of our cultures are, that we don't even pay attention to our, I guess, Orthodox cousins. I say our. I'm not really a Christian at all, but
I don't know.
They celebrate. They believe in the same shit. They just follow a different calendar. That's the difference, really. And they have their own cultural
They're
practices.
extravagant. Religions are extravagant book clubs.
Yeah.
We're reading from this book extensively for years and years and years.
But that's my article.
Made you yawn. Made you yawn. All right, so I guess we're on to this day in history, no?
Yep.
It must be. It must be this day in history. On this day in history, what happened? Well, we'll tell you. On May 6th, 1877, Crazy Horse surrendered in Nebraska. He was a leader in the Sioux resistance to European Americans' invasion of the northern Great Plains. There's a monument to Crazy Horse in South Dakota, not too far from Mount Rushmore.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to Mount Rushmore, you must visit Crazy Horse, which is still being worked on. It's still being worked on. You can't say that for the Mount Rushmore one. I think they quit working on it. 1882, U.S. President Chester A. Arthur, well, except for maintenance. I suppose they can't let Abe's nose fall off. What would they do if Abe's nose did fall off? Anyway, U.S. President Chester A. Arthur in 1882 signed the Chinese Exclusion Act. Oh, yeah. You thought you had rights because you were an American? Hell no. The first and only major federal legislation explicitly suspend immigration for a specific nationality. So Chester A. Arthur invented xenophobia. He invented, but he made an official government policy. 1915, American baseball player Babe Ruth hit his first major league home run. He finished his career with 715 homers, a record that stood until 1974 when Hank Aaron broke it. 1915, American motion picture actor and director Orson Welles was born in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Wasn't raised there, he was just born there. 1931, American baseball star Willie Mays was born in Westfield, Alabama on this day. 1931. Happy birthday, Willie Mays. 1942, the American garrison under Corregidor Island, under the command of General Jonathan M. Wainwright, surrendered to a Japanese invaders after 27 days standoff during World War II. 1953, British Labour Party leader Tony Blair was born. He became the youngest British Prime Minister since 1812 when he was elected in 1997. In 1954, Roger Bannister of Britain became the first athlete to run a mile in less than 4 minutes, which is complete horseshit. Sorry. Roger Bannister was recognized by England as being the first athlete to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. It had been done for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Just nobody ever timed it before like that. That's all. It's just some non-existent record they decided to create out of thin air. There is no record of anybody running a mile in less than 4 minutes until then. Really? I bet you there is. I guarantee there is. But again, they invented it. They invented a frickin' no. Seriously, there is no such thing as Roger Bannister shattering anything. It was just a bunch of crap they invented. Anyway, the last episode of I Love Lucy aired. I'm sorry?
You're a truther.
I'm just pissing all this Roger Bannister nonsense. I'm a truther on this nonsense. You can look up all kinds of. I watched something specific about this. You can find all kinds of journals registering before cameras were invented, right? And there you could, of people running because they had clocks, they had stopwatches, less than 4 minute miles, way less than 4 minute miles. Okay, so it's a bullshit record. Never should have been counted as anything. It's just, I think it was just to boost the country's morale or something. I think that's what that was. I'm not sure exactly what it was. It was around 1954. But there's not some great leap of fucking athleticism that Roger Bannister achieved. I'm sorry. Anyway, he was just some runner. I'm just sorry. I'm going on about this, but it was. Why is this a landmark anymore? It's just non-existent garbage. Is what it is. They shouldn't even be recognized. In 1957, on this day, the last episode of I Love Lucy aired. The hugely popular show, which starred Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, was considered one of TV's landmark sitcoms. Was I think it still is. No? 1961, American actor George Clooney was born. And we know who George Clooney is. He's in a lot of movies. It's also the birthday of Marlene Dietrich. I'm sorry, it's not her birthday.
Mom's crush, right? For a long time. She loved George Clooney.
I have no idea. I don't think that. George Clooney? Really? I don't know.
That's what at some point she was one of her crushes. I don't know if it is now.
No idea. No. 1992, Marlene Dietrich passed away at the age of 90. Her beauty German actress Marlene Dietrich, read this article. Actress Marlene Dietrich, whose beauty, voice, and aura of sophistication and languid sensuality made her one of the world's most glamorous film stars. Okay. Name one movie Marlene Dietrich is in. All right. I'm just saying. I'm not putting her down. I'm just like, I don't know what she was even in. So, yeah, I'm sure she was sexy and all that stuff and provocative or whatever, but coming up short on the you tell me I can't. I'm not trying to put her down or anything. I'm just like I'm drawing a blank. Marlene Dietrich, what was she in? Anyway, I know she's a famous recluse. I mean, she got famous or something. I don't know. Maybe she wasn't even a recluse. I'm just drawing a blank. 1998, Steve Jobs introduced Apple's first iMac, a personal computer that became hugely successful and helped revive the struggling company. In 2002, South African-born American entrepreneur Elon Musk founded the aerospace company SpaceX, which helped usher in the era of commercial spaceflight. Way to go, Elon. 2004, the final episode of the television sitcom Friends aired and was watched by more than 52 million viewers. And I guess they're still friends. 2023, in the first British coronations in some 7 decades, Charles III was coronated and Camilla was crowned queen. So Charles and Camilla coronated 1 year ago today. Yay, Chucky.
Good job.
1937 on this date.
Long enough.
A featured event. And remember, last year at this time, we were making the holy hand grenade jokes. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway. And 1937, the Hindenburg disaster in this day. In this day, 1937, while landing in Lakehurst, New Jersey, on his first transatlantic crossing, I should have played the video for this. On his first transatlantic crossing of the year, the German dirigible Hindenburg burst into flames and destroyed, killing 36 of the 97 persons aboard. Famously, one of probably the first major disaster caught on film. And also on radio. And of course, the famous radio broadcast where the guy goes, "Oh, the humanity!" And I can't watch this anymore. Oh, the humanity. I could have played that video for your mark drop. And it was a symbol of Nazi Germany, and it symbolically went up in flames in 1937. Well, Jews everywhere cheered, "Look at the Nazis going up in flames." That's a symbol. Actually, it's a symbol, and it's also the cover of Led Zeppelin's albums when they first put them out. Crazy world.
Yeah.
Other birthdays today, Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud, American psychoanalyst, was born on May 3rd, May 6th, May 6th, 1856.
He blames everything that happens
Czechoslovakia.
in your brain on being in love with your mother or something.
Now, it's oversimplified. It's oversimplification day. The logical fallacy of oversimplification. And he died September 23rd in 1939 at the age of 83 in London, England. And Sigmund Freud famously said, "Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar." So it's birthday of Sigmund Freud. Happy birthday. Rudolph Valentino born on this day in 1895. American actor, silent film actor Rudolph Valentino. Orson Welles we already covered. Tony Blair we covered. And George Clooney already covered. So we're going to go to our day calendar. What day is it today? It is... Oh, by the way, yesterday, we're going to do this. It isn't today, but it was done yesterday. By presidential proclamation, today is this is yesterday, by the way. Not today, but I'm reading this article. By presidential proclamation, today is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Persons Awareness Day. So yesterday, Joe Biden delivered a proclamation on Missing or Murdered Indigenous Persons Awareness Day, which is today, May 5th. In part, it reads, for decades, Native communities across this continent have been devastated by an epidemic of disappearances and killings, too often without resolution, justice, or accountability. On Missing or Murdered Indigenous Persons Awareness Day, we honor the individuals missing and the lives lost, and we recommit to working with tribal nations to end the violence and inequities that drive this crisis, delivering safety and healing. So, good on you, Joe Biden, making a presidential declaration, but we couldn't cover it today because today's May 6th, which is National Nurses Day.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I wish I had some red paint so I could do the red handprint. That's what you're supposed to do for that
right.
day.
Well, don't you have a red Sharpie?
No, I don't have any markers or anything.
No, okay. You can always use blood.
It wouldn't
Not your
stay
own.
long
Maybe a
enough,
mosquito can suck it out and just. I don't use blood. I'm joking. National Nurses Day is today. It's National Beverage Day. National Beverage Day. All right. You enjoy a beverage. I think everybody does. I think beverage just means drink, right? Does it have any specific meaning?
Yeah, I think whatever you drink.
It's actual. Anything you drink, it's a beverage. Water is a beverage.
Soup.
No. Soup is a beverage. Right. Cream is a beverage. National Crepe Suzette Day. So if you like a crepe Suzette.
A crepe,
you really, mean? Really thin tortilla. A crepe. I thought it was crepe. It's crepe?
Crepe?
I thought it was crepe.
It doesn't matter how you pronounce it. As long as
crepe or crepe. Is it crepe or crepe? I'm gonna go to my
What's
Google language thing.
I guess the real question: what is a Suzette?
It's like a really thin tortilla. Oh, you're talking about crepe. I don't know. I think it's just the name of the person that came up with it. How do you pronounce crepe? What the hell are you doing?
It's quite distinct from other dishes because of its, I guess it came out of Paris. He accidentally ruined a sauce for crepes. Yeah. He was serving to Prince Edward of Wales.
It's pronounced crepe.
Yeah, crepe. With no time to recover,
it's in French, it's crepe.
He tasted the burned sauce and discovered the flavors blended deliciously. When he served the dish, Carpentier named it Crepe Princesse. However, when the prince gently protested, he changed the name to Suzette in honor of the one female guest at the table. Okay. So he accidentally made a sauce that was slightly burnt and decided, you know what? This is the new sauce, and we're going to name it after the woman at the table who was there when I burnt my sauce. That's why it's called Suzette. That's a complicated story.
Right on.
But quite French.
It's a lot. And it's also Melanoma Monday, so...
Because, don't forget...
Melanoma is the deadliest form of skin cancer.
Yep, don't forget. Check all those weird brown spots.
Oh yeah, if you got a mole that's starting to move or change colors, it's probably cancer. So, there you go. Those are your stories for today, which is Monday, May 6, 2024, and before coffee.
And this has been Allison here, the end of our Before Coffee show here on Monday. I hope you have a good Monday. Don't get too angry or, I don't know, depressed about it. Because tomorrow will be Good Tuesday News Day, and we'll talk about all the good stuff that's been happening last week and this week.
We'll have on our party hats tomorrow.
Yeah. Get your smiles on, I guess. And, yeah, this has been me. Have a good one. Stay safe out there. Don't leave the house if it's flooding. And here is your mic drop moment.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.